Happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in to the PWTorch Fireside Chat, the weekly flagship edition of this show on the PWTorch YouTube channel. I am PWTorch Assistant Editor Zack Heydorn. That is PWTorch legend Tyler Sage. Tyler, man, what's up?
Hey, a lot of good wrestling as always, or good storylines to talk about, etc. So I'm very curious. I was kind of talking weather at the very beginning. Are you getting like 8 feet of snow, or is it 70 degrees where you are? Because it's kind of like the two dichotomies right now.
Well, you know what? We're actually in the middle. It's not 70. We don't have any snow, but it's just really crappy outside. Really, really windy and rainy and cold, and just so we don't get the niceness of either of those two extremes. Snow, no nice weather, just bad.
Yeah, because it's I'll tell you right now, it is 70 degrees in Columbus, Ohio.
Are you kidding me?
No, and up, 3 hours north, we're getting 2 feet of snow. So
wow,
very, very interesting times up in Michigan. So so I guess somewhere in the middle is there, but it makes you, gives you colds, and I'm sure it's coming for me next week. So you'll sound great, and then I'll be a little clogged up. So it's the way of the world.
It's coming, yeah. If I sound raspy, that's because I am. So it just hit me in the last 24 hours. All of a sudden, feel fine, just can't talk. So, but hey, it is what it is. Are you going to be announcing any Fireside Chat All Access shows today?
Well, you didn't put big announcement in the title, so I'm not allowed to. I'll have to.
Sorry.
We'd have to have Wade pop on for 7 seconds and then throw it to, throw it to Rich or somebody to make the big announcement for us. But yeah, so we talked about this on the pre-show yesterday of I had tiers ranking of what the announcement was. The hey, this is actually a big announcement tier was Jay White is all elite, which was I didn't think was going to happen, but that's the real hey, we have a big announcement. 2 would have been Adam Cole is back, or here's the date he's back, here's his opponent at Revolution, what have you. It was it better be at least this. Anything that was below that. So at first I was I cannot believe we are living in a parody of a Tony Khan story. I feel like ChatGPT wrote this story as someone that hates Tony Khan and the way he runs things. So it's hey, give me Tony Khan doing the most Tony Khan thing ever on a TV show, and then Cole saying, hey, I'm gonna have a match that same night before it premieres. Was something I was listening to Brian Alvarez a little bit. I think he's still live right now, so not to everyone can please listen to that after here if you're watching now. But he was talking about how he doesn't think wrestling fans are excited for this, but he personally is excited for that, which is interesting. I like to always talk about our colleagues across the space and kind of what their motives are for things. But he's claiming that this will show some of the backstage politics that are reported on, and we can see them in action. And I will believe when I see it. It feels more like a Britt Baker, Adam Cole show to me. But my wife was watching Dynamite with me last night, and she, at least in the moment, I told her to let me know in 24 hours. But she seemed very excited to do the review of that show for the network here. So maybe we'll have a correspondent.
Nice. That would be fun.
Yeah. So we'll see about that. But that's who I think this is going for, much like Total Divas, Total Bellas, etc. So we'll see. The one thing is it's good news for Time Warner and Turner and all that stuff are liking the product to add another hour of content. Certainly going to do better than Power Slap. And if they lose NBA rights in a little bit, I think they're going all in on wrestling here, because if you look per capita, for what they're paying, I'd rather have all AEW stuff if I'm Turner for the amount I'm paying versus what they're getting out of the NBA for the cost. So I talked a lot. What do you have to say on the subject?
Well, I mean, yes, I think on one hand, you look at that and you go, okay, this is good. This is good news. They're in a good position with, Warner, their television partner ahead of negotiations. Thumbs up on that. So that's that's good. And if you're Tony Khan and you're the promoter, and you're the owner of AEW, I think of course, you'd say yes to something like this. It's more television time, it's more revenue, it's another product that you can add into your suite of products when you go to renegotiate your deal. Of course, you're taking this if you're Tony Khan. I don't know, worry is the wrong word, but I don't agree with Brian Alvarez in that we're going to see backstage politics and stuff that, we may see some of that, but it's going to be all through the filter of like the company that's putting the show out. Like, I don't think we're not going to be fed, backstage interviews about like the real, what really happened with the CM Punk situation at the All Out press conference. Like that, I would be shocked if we get that kind of political like content backstage, or no one's going to be going backstage going, well, like we do have a very siloed locker room right now. We've got the Elite over here doing their thing. We've got, like Taz and his guys over here. And, like I just don't think it's going down that way. So I think it's going to be a very produced reality TV show, really, and just one part of me says they could really use something like this because they need better character development. They need better ways to build stars within their own umbrella. Like if you come to AEW, how do you get to be a bigger star in AEW? Well, this could be a mechanism to do that. We'll see. The other concern I have is just that it's another hour of content. It's another hour for Tony Khan to spend time on. It's another hour to try to weave that into other stories and other angles that already don't make sense in weekly AEW in the weekly AEW ecosystem. So that's a concern too. So we'll see how it plays out. When you hear this, are you like, yes, can't wait for that, or are you like, oh God, this is probably more trouble than it's worth?
Yeah, I'm more in line with you if I'm giving like advice on, to Tony Khan, right? I probably would have also said don't do the Rampage deal, right? Because you're still, I'd love to look at the books and give a better answer for you, but there's still at this point no way that AEW is, generating, positive cash flow for the Khans at this point, right? You're waiting for that second TV deal to really get in that zone. Mm-hmm. So, Rampage and this probably feel more like ways to keep justifying the money that you're putting into this, et cetera.
Right.
And is that good for the long term? Hey, I guess if you needed it to get there, sure, you can't really argue that. But if you didn't have to do it, if you could use the revenue to charge Dynamite and produce the slickest content you can from that, this feels the same way. But, I don't know if I'd love to see like when this pops on, like who the executive producer is that we know of. We'll see names that we probably know for that are outside of Warner Bros. Discovery. But if Tony Khan's name is on as EP, et cetera, and he's spending actual time on this, then yes, that's a huge problem. But if this is another thing Jeff Jarrett's doing or whatever, if the people they added and they're doing this and it doesn't really take time away from him, like I think these audiences are so different and it'll be significantly lower than Dynamite's viewership. But hey, if you can get 300,000 people to watch a show consistently at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday, I don't think it's a huge issue, but I certainly wouldn't do it. It's not for me. But if it doesn't take any time away from Tony Khan per se, that's someone else's job and it brings revenue, I don't have a huge problem with it. But we got to see it in action before it happens. And does it get canceled after 6 episodes because no one's watching it? That's like an issue here that could be a negative talking point for everyone if that is the case. And is it worth to whatever revenue they're getting from this? I don't know. I'd have to see the numbers to give you a better answer, but it feels very much like I don't know. It just feels like someone at Warner Brothers Discovery saw the WWE playbook, pitched it to Tony Khan and AEW, and they're like, yeah, sure, whatever, you give us some money for this, we'll do it. And I don't know, it just feels pretty uninspired. It feels very much like a Marvel movification of a movie. It's like this kind of same old everywhere across the thing. So that's disheartening in that way is like the lack of creativity here and kind of the cash grab feel of it. And I certainly, we'll see who the stars are. I think Adam Cole seems like a really wholesome and nice guy, especially if you watch anything he does on Twitch, etc. But like, I personally do not care one iota to see like him and Britt going to some fake party and they're trying to be some drama or whatever, right? I have no interest in that whatsoever.
See, and that's where I'm like, I think that if it goes that direction, I don't know what kind of, like, it'll be hit and, let's put it this way, it'll be hit and miss on the type of impact that I think he can have. Like, do you, like, when you're watching AEW and you're watching Adam Cole, like, I don't know that I want to see wholesome Adam Cole, who's this, like, this great guy, because that's not really his wrestling character, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like, that'd be like in 1999 getting, this is over dramatic, but it'd be like seeing Steve Austin in his real world environment in 1999 when you're supposed to like view him as this like rebel badass, and then you see him like, playing with his dogs and stuff on his ranch, like literally an hour later. I don't know. I just think that they're like that. I don't know. I mean, I think proof will be in the pudding, like how they do this. But it just be weird to see like him be that character when he's not. Then when that's not the character that is trying to sell you on big time pay-per-view matches. I mean, yeah. I just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, there's characters to do that with if that's the way they were going to go. Like, comments here, Eddie Kingston. Like, if you showed him live his real life, and Mark Maron was at the Kia Forum show back in January, and he did like a 4-hour podcast where he interviewed Tony Khan and Eddie Kingston and everybody. It was a very good show. If you don't listen to Maron, I think that's a good one to check out for everybody. But Kingston was on. He was on for like 5 minutes, and he stole the show from all the interview. He's just talking about everything we know, but just like how concise and how he's obviously like, I think he's, again, I've compared him to like the Tommy Dreamer, but in a better way, obviously, as a character. Like, if he won the AEW world title, I think that'd be the biggest story in AEW's like history of like good storytelling. If he like had some arc where he became world champion for 3 months, I think it would be a highlight of AEW creatively. So if you did, because he's so good at conveying that character and he blends so well with his real life and not a negative way like you're talking about here. So if you followed someone like that, if you followed, this tongue-in-cheek a little bit, but I'd be interested to watch it if you showed, Ricky Starks and he's literally at the Royal Rumble and you can see the cameras there and like what is going on and all this sort of stuff and kind of get that fake intrigue that way. That would be great. But yeah, I just don't think, I think we're going to get the, Chris Lee Knows Best, the and the Osbournes-ification of, there's so many production crews that just do stuff like that now that they have like a cookie cutter way to get all that sort of stuff. And yes, I mean, I think Stone Cold in '99, I'm trying to think when the allegations happened with him, and that might help. That might not help a babyface character if you showed him full '90s regalia there, right? So if Adam Cole's gonna be a top guy, which I think he is, he feels like a guy. Whoever wins the Page and Moxley situation feels like a likely opponent for MJF, and then Cole at the Chicago show in August or early September. I don't want him pounding around and going to the dentist office with Britt and being a normal guy like me and you, which is like endearing to him for us. But like, if you're someone who's casually popping around, and you see a clip of him, doing that, you're like, oh, this guy's the world champion. Like, Roman Reigns is like a cool guy who's doing all this sort of other stuff. And just like, this circle doesn't square for sure.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head too. Like, it won't work for everybody. Like, I think for Cody Rhodes, when he had his show, like that worked better just because of who they are, than it does for me for like somebody like Adam Cole. Now, Adam Cole has a story here with the concussions and all that, so I don't know if that's what they have, but we'll see. How long do you think? How many weeks do you think? And Wade talked a little bit about this last night with Mike McMahon on the post show. How many weeks do you think until they overrun Dynamite into that all access hour with like a match or something.
Yeah, like you mean like Adam Cole fights so and so, and that is like leading to some story that person and Cole had backstage 6 months ago or something.
That or just, oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, the match isn't over yet, and we're gonna stick with it until it's absolutely over, and then it's 10 after the hour, 15 after the hour, into like their all access slot where that happens, and then you just see 15 minutes extra, like the old overruns used to be.
Yeah, I mean the first week. make sure that pops a rating or two. I don't know, but like, yeah, if you can gimmick at that and that counts as the first quarter hour of that show.
Yeah,
I think if you're whoever's behind this, whatever this is, right? I've been looking at the Power Slap numbers. I mean, they're close to Rampage numbers, so I think that's more. You can indict the Power Slap thing, or you can indict Rampage. Depends how you want to like argue that point. I think it's more of an indictment of that time slot on cable. It's just bad, 10 to 11. But, if you can beat that Power Slap number pretty convincingly the first couple of weeks, I think then you're going to give yourself a 12-week period of, who knows how long they have this, is it 12 weeks of content and then they'll second season. So if you can get the first 4 or 5 where you're like a number that's beating expectations, then you're going to get all 12 of those episodes for sure that you've already made. And, that'll probably be the goal. But we'll see. We'll all know about it when it happens, but that would certainly feel forced and cheesy. But we'll see. So it's either like week 1 or 2, or I don't think they do it. So we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say week 1 too. Like, what? Why not? All right. Well, so that was interesting news. I'm with you. Like that. I'm not sure that needs to be on television. But if you're Warner, maybe you want it to be, just to make it seem bigger than it actually is. And I mean, also the fact of the matter is, whenever Tony Khan advertises some kind of an announcement, there's an uptick in the numbers. So I'm sure that played into it as well. I guess let's just talk Dynamite since we're on it. Were you happy with last night's show? Were you lukewarm on it? I thought there were some really strong things that happened on it. And then I thought there were some really bad parts where I'm just like, what? Like, what's happening here? I'm confused. So I ranged all across the spectrum yesterday while I was watching Dynamite.
Yeah, I think on my final thoughts thing on my live report, I said it was an up and down episode. Felt like that. Felt kind of like a mid-pandemic episode of Dynamite, where it's like kind of there's a lot going on that's not super cohesive, and I think Dynamite's been pretty good about being cohesive and like, hey, maybe 2 weeks ago the goal is like put on awesome matches, and also we're going to get 2 or 3 matches at the pay-per-view kind of in line or advance that story of what our major angles are, and just a little sloppy from all the storytelling stuff. Like as an example, I think like Christian Cage and that being so rushed to this pay-per-view. I think there's certainly some things they could have done of just bringing Cage back like even a week or 2 earlier, and like that would have signaled to people. I don't know, it just feels like him probably coming back or something that they built a year to get the match. And I know injuries happen and it sucks, and that would be the Tony Khan excuse of like, obviously we didn't plan for Cage to get injured, but like for how much equity and if you look at all the minutes of AEW TV time, this story certainly has a lot. It has more than Kenny Omega and Hangman Page had together on screen to tell this.
Yeah, for sure.
And so like to have this pop up and just have like have him do some chair shots and have Jack Perry play a little bit, and we're right there, and no Luchasaurus involved. It's just like things like that are like a personification of kind of the messiness of something that should be like a top 3 or 4 match on this card, and instead, about an hour of content the next 2 weeks is going to be tag team battle royals that always suck, and no matter the company, and to do them in back-to-back weeks, and then to have Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal win too is like perplexing to win a match like that. And, but I did like MJF and Danielson. I think I was like coming down on the excitement of that, and they revved me back up, so I was very appreciative of that. And then there's talking points for me and you about the main event. That was insane for almost no reason, but I'm happy to talk about it. And then I think the only other major takeaway I had, and you can let me know if I'm missing anything major here, but it's like, I'm pretty officially ready to say like Saraya just cannot work in a singles match. I don't know if she ever will be, from like whatever angle she wants to, like making it a triple threat match. And only because like it's not really, they've done an okay job shoehorning that in as like a story that needs to be told of Ruby making a decision here. But like, Saraya and Sky Blue, like Sky Blue is dominating that match for the 5 minutes that it's on, and need to use Toni Storm. So you have a former champion helping you defeat someone like Sky Blue. Just like, I'm not here to like advocate for Saraya burying people, but like if you have someone like Sky Blue in there against Saraya, and Saraya is going to be in a title match, I need Saraya to beat her pretty cleanly within 5 minutes for where Sky Blue is on the pecking order. And just like things like that, I'm like, man, what are we doing here with this? And so yeah, messy. There's I'm excited about, Moxley Hangman, I think has been built pretty well. And I'm excited about the hour-long Iron Man match. Everything else feels like, not really well thought out. And, you have House of Black challenging the Elite, which we know about, but like, that's a whole nother story when they don't get re-signed probably at this rate is kind of where I'm hedging. So not to take the whole, so I'm going all over the place, but that's kind of how the episode felt last night. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm totally with it. Like it was a lot of, I think it was a lot of the same, that we've seen the last couple of weeks with AEW, like in spots, you see some good stuff. I thought this week, like you, the MJF and the Bryan Danielson stuff was strong. Like I thought the promo segment, it answered a question of like, why does MJF hate Bryan Danielson so much? I think that was worth going into. It also kept the championship at the center of everything. Like, I'm obsessed with this title, right? Like, and Bryan Danielson's going to try to take the title away. So I think they walked out of that with a much hotter feud than they had going in. So like, thumbs up on that to me. But yeah, but then you go down and like the women's, the women's situation is just like, I think it's such a mess right now. You have Jamie Hayter, who's the world champion, and like she's gonna wrestle Ruby Soho, who is kind of supposed to be in the middle of like these two kind of warring factions that I haven't really fully bought into yet. Like I know I'm supposed to think that they hate each other, but I just don't feel that way. Like I don't feel that way when I'm watching it. Like, when MJF and CM Punk were wrestling each other, like you could just get the sense that these two hated each other. Whether they did or not is irrelevant, but you thought that they did. And here I'm just like, they're really forcing this kind of faction warfare. And Ruby Soho's in the middle, but it's like, I don't know how they keep messing up with the women's division. Like, you have the belt on Jamie Hayter, line up some opponents and like do something, like promote title defenses. Like, why not Jamie Hayter against Saraya right now? If Saraya can't work a match, that's a problem, obviously. But that's a problem that you should probably have known about before you like signed her, number one, but also number two, featured her the way that you did, and like calling out the fact that she's gonna wrestle matches. So, but you have this champion that's just sitting there with the belt, and it's like, I don't think there's any intrigue in this. Like, I think, she's gonna pin Ruby, and that's it. Match over. The tag team situation, man, dude, you had the good, like, guns against the Acclaimed. Like, that should be the match here. That's the story you've been telling on TV for weeks. Even in the confines of last night's show, the angle really played out around Guns and the Acclaimed. Yet you're going to have Jarrett and Lethal involved in this somehow, and some other team, maybe even like an established team like FTR could be coming back to that spot. But to what end? It's like, that's not what we've been seeing like on a week-to-week basis. And so that one is a real confusing one to me. And then the other thing that stood out last night specifically was I love the Wheeler Yuta Orange Cassidy match itself. I thought it was just a fantastic match. Good near falls, good action, good emotion. Crowd was into it. But it's like, since when is Wheeler Yuta trying to get booed from the audience? Like, what? That's not Wheeler Yuta. That's like the opposite of Wheeler Yuta. Like he's like just as much of an underdog fighting babyface as Orange Cassidy is usually. So I was like, man, this is a good match, but like I don't understand, like why is he doing this to the crowd? How are we supposed to invest in Blackpool Combat Club now if you know you're kind of throwing him out there for this situation, and it's just not contextual with anything. So that's what I thought with the problems of the show, and I think it's problems that we're starting to see all the time that pop up. And I don't know what the rating's going to look like. It's probably going to come out here in a little while, but I don't think if you watched the show because you were teased by the Tony Khan hook, I don't know that anything happened here that made you go, oh man, I really need to see what happens next between these. Guys.
I actually happened to have said it. Would you like to guess? I'm looking at it right now.
Yes, I would. I will guess 894.
Okay, so you got to remember there was no NBA last night.
Oh, true.
It's still on delay. So it was number one last night, the number one show. It was at 1,028,000, but the key demo was a 0.28.
All right, so that's a good number. That's a good number.
And that's 18 to 34. So 18 to 49 was 0.35. So depends what key number you're looking at. I think 18 to 34 is more valuable. But
that's strong.
It beat two college basketball games and then the challenge and Vanderbilt rules. So there's your live access on cable there. But very shocked by that. But that helps not to have a bunch of NBA stuff there. And also it's something that's on and it's something to hook people, and you got to do. That's why it's good to look at trends as opposed to single week numbers. But if they can get some good numbers and do a good pay-per-view number off of this, then we're people that have watched every Dynamite since inception, and our opinion is what it is, and I think we're correct in the long-term trajectory of what works and what doesn't work. But for week in and week out, it might have been something that the blood across the show might have gotten people to switch over and be like, man, this is a crazy ass show. I got to keep watching this,
Yeah,
or whatever.
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah, like I think to me it's like, okay, well that's a great number, and that's good. And what I think yes, no NBA plus Tony Khan announcement. Like I think that factors in. But it really doesn't matter because the number is what they got. But it tells you that there are 1 million plus people that are willing to watch a show on a weekly basis, but they're not all watching on a weekly basis, So that I think it's something that I would want to know if I'm Tony Khan. Like, okay, how do we what do we do? Do we do anything on a week to week basis that turn these people off? Or is it just okay? But we got some NBA viewers. You know what I mean? Like, which could easily be. But I don't think it changes my analysis of what's going on. Like, I think a number like this could be a lot more regular if you're just a little bit more buttoned up on presenting stars in a consistent way.
Yeah, and just like final ratings. No, I just checked Monday because I didn't look at the raw rating until just now. That was like 2.2 million, and then like 1.8 million for the 8, 9, and 10 o'clock hours. So that got a significant bump. Those are like SmackDown numbers.
Yes.
For the no NBA on Monday as well. So I think that helps tremendously as well. So I think next week this is more of an anomaly positive week for both companies. But I mean, I think as Amos said here in the chat, I agree. I think they need a hard reset after this pay-per-view. I said it yesterday. It feels like they were like creatively kind of like on fumes here to get through the show. And then, I think there's, some of my favorite Dynamites of all time are the first Dynamite after pay-per-view, because you kind of hit the reset button and reestablish people in different ways. And I think there's good potential here to kind of move on and who's champion, who's not, and whatever. So you get through the kind of Wardlow story that is not working. You get through the Ricky Starks Jericho thing, which is, gone on too long. You get through whatever this women's story is, you kind of advance that. Tag team, maybe you have a tag team that's established, you go from there, etc. Just like on and on and on. I think it'd all be better once they clear through all this stuff. But, as was also reported for whatever satellite provider, we're going to be building to Forbidden Door 2, more likely than not. So it'll get even muddled, and we'll have the same critiques we had this time last year of like, it feels like we're in a 6-week period of a pocket universe of AEW. And
like Survivor Series time. The what they do have on their side, and you talk about this all the time, and I think you're right, is that, I mean, they're going to go into a pay-per-view go-home week next week, so I'm assuming that'll do a decent numbers, hopefully, and then their show coming out of pay-per-views is usually a pretty good show. That does strong numbers. So they have like 2 weeks lined up where they should be able to build on this 1 million. That's positive. Do you I think Revolution is like I think it's a really tough pay-per-view for AEW because it's so far from the last pay-per-view. Like, it's the largest gap of time between pay-per-views. You got to go from beginning of November, which is when Full Gear happens, to beginning of March. So that's November, December, January, February. That's almost 4 months, of time. Like, after this pay-per-view, you'll have a 2 month build. You'll have
Memorial Day, and then literally a month after that, you're gonna have Forbidden Door.
Memorial Day, Forbidden Door, and then All Out, is right around the corner, and then Full Gear is not too far after that. So it's a strain. It's like I think it's a pay-per-view because you have to build to nothing really. Like, somewhere in the middle of that, you have to have some kind of big matches. You can't have your whole company on like just sputtering out nothing for all that time. So when you say fumes, I think that it is, because you gotta they're like limping in finally to the finish line here of like, all right, we're finally at this pay-per-view. Let's get it now. So that is at play a little bit here too. But again, at the same time, if you're buttoned up on some of these things, like with your characters and with your stories, like, it's I don't think being on fumes impacts you as much because you have like that baseline that you can always go back to. I don't know that they have that like locked down right now.
Yeah, I would agree. And bigger discussion, we can pass on this too. I think it's coming down the line. But just watching these shows and like the news breaking of, who knows if it's real or not, but of WWE kind of putting feelers out for Kenny and the Bucks, right? It feels like a lot of that is real. And like, I think the Cody stuff, I think you and I were both on the page of like, this is good for wrestling when it happened. And I think, at least I was like, I don't think it's a huge blow for AEW because it wasn't working. But it's like, if they leave and do something at WWE, like the heart and soul of that company is going to take, like, it's exited, and now it's like the Tony Khan company, as opposed to all the kind of whimsical poetry that Cody is talking about on the podcast circuit that he's doing, which is like, you're either here for that or you're not. But that's gonna be a hard like mental and like vibes, I guess is the best way to put it, like thing to jump over of like, this is the Tony Khan company, this is not the plucky underdog all in company that kind of got that groundwell of grassroots support, etc. And I don't know if it happens or not, but just like the last couple of weeks, and then I know it's what Aussie Open and the Bucks on Rampage on Friday.
Yep.
But like literally 250,000 people are going to watch that. So like, you're basically, that is, I think more people watch AEW Dark if you look at the view count than watch Rampage, at least live. So they can watch Evil Uno's 18-match win streak more so than they're watching the other.
Okay, when they said that last night, I was like, come on, man. Okay, like you gotta check it. That was crazy. That was crazy.
Yeah, that's why I remember it. Oh, it'll be burning my memory forever because I was like, what?
18-0 of just nothingness, and you didn't hear about 10-0 or 12-0 or like.
Thank God there's no rankings, or else he would have gotten the title match.
Title match, yeah. So. Oh my goodness, yeah, Steven, this is it would be a pure ego move. I mean, I think tag team wrestling, and it just might main event WrestleMania, a tag team title match, but I think it means more in a Triple H-led creative vision of WWE than Vince McMahon, but it still would be an ego move. And I just wouldn't put it past the Bucks or Kenny to make that jump. I mean, like, look, there's what. I mean, the Bucks against the Usos would be a dream match that you'd want to see, and so you have that piece of business to go to. But outside of that, like, nothing. New Day, I guess maybe you could do that, but outside of that, it's like, yeah, there's not much they could do. But it's like, for as much as the Bucks like play like we're the little engine that could, and they are for in a lot of ways. Now that they got to do this and they got this off their chest and they're older, I don't know that I'd be turning down a big bag of money from a huge company that's going to pay me well and not force me to work, as crazy of a style. I mean, and I think Kenny might be saying the same darn thing. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see those guys make that move. And in some ways, I think you're right. The heart and soul is gone. That like would be gone from AEW. But in other ways, it's like, when you really think about it, like, how much are they contributing to the show at a high level on a week-to-week basis? And I don't know. I mean, I think in some ways they do, because they set a tone, when they're out there, but they're not involved in main event storylines. None of them are, and they haven't been for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and I think, like, in WWE, to me, they are like an elevated version of Judgment Day, where they can, like, tell a story as a group, because they like to work heel. You can tell. Yeah. And with the way you can be like, with some written stuff, like, they could. I think that could be attractive to them, maybe, if they're like, maybe not a main event thing, but they can do like their fun and have basically like an hour of content weekly on Raw or whatever it's going to be. Feels like more their destiny, besides like the initial run, like like an AJ Styles type for Kenny, where he gets that that title or whatever, when there's two titles, and they can pair with Cody, right? That's a natural storyline of them all being aligned together, etc. But like, I think like there's something to in where I thought it was the best move for Cody, it was the best move for AEW, it was the best move for WWE. It was rare. Like, it makes sense for everybody in the equation. But like, if you're AEW, like, you let a guy leave who's going to main event WrestleMania, the first opportunity that he could, is like, it's hard to argue that you shouldn't have just signed him and Rusev'd him, from a business standpoint. And I think it's going to be a similar storyline of like, man, like in the ether, when someone writes the first book of like, if there is a rise and fall of AEW, or if it becomes like an Impact style company where it's around, but it's not been relevant for a decade, sort of thing, culturally, within the wrestling space at least. It's like, that's the turning point, and we might all think it's good for everyone involved, because like, yeah, Tony's not using them, but like, to go, if you have Cody, if all of the people that started your company as VPs go over, feel they're used better, and they feel like they're more impactful over there than other company, that's an indictment on you and how you manage things. And it's, if it does enter a decline, that's going to be the thing everyone turns to. Just like, you can do that with WCW, with ECW, etc. That's going to be the key point. So
yeah,
but he's not using them, and they don't seem interested in doing anything other than comedy stuff either, and there doesn't seem to be the infrastructure there to force them into good creative. And I think that would be their WWE. So just interesting, because like, we'll see what happens, but I think that's potential to be like a top 5 story of the decade. Vince McMahon's story being number 1, I think, this decade already. But Cody and them leaving the company that they started to then join the competition and then do better on screen than they were at the other company, I think, is something you can't discount. Whether and I would say like right now, like as a fan, I think the Cody move has been great, and I would sign off on that again for me as a personal viewer. And I think the same thing for Kenny and the Bucks, that if they went over to WWE, I think it would be better. The same reason I think Jay White should go to WWE right now, because he's a top guy who's going to be consistently featured, and I'm going to be able to see him in at least one segment or one match weekly without a doubt, and I don't have to, watch some B product to watch him. So,
well, and I think we're seeing that, like, AEW right now just they don't have the avenue, or they don't have the credibility that, hey, come here and you're going to be a bigger star, really, than when you got here. I mean, I think that there's levels to it, right? I mean, I think like Top Flight are bigger star. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're more known, right? I think that's probably the better way to put it. I think there's some notoriety that you get that now that you, when you join, AEW, and you get like a really nice pop from the diehard wrestling fans. But like outside of MJF, and even MJF, there's going to be a time where he looks at the brighter lights too and goes, well, I'm pretty much at the highest level I can be at in AEW. So now where do I want to go next? And I think that you don't have like that path to stay in this company and I'm going to make you a superstar, and some people care about that. Like, I don't know that the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega does. Cody Rhodes definitely did. And he went to a place where, obviously that's going to work out for him. It already has. And so, when these other guys come up, like Ricky Starks and MJF and even somebody like Hangman Page, or like just that lower kind of that middle tier, I could see them going, well, I still want a little bit more. And so, AEW's got to find a way to make a star on their own and make it really big. Because even now, it's like you have MJF working Bryan Danielson, but Bryan Danielson's he's not like, he is one of your faces of the company right now, but not from the perspective of like the company's on this guy's shoulders, and he's a legitimate world champion challenger because of his name, but outside of that, I don't think anybody really thinks he's going to win this match. Do you?
Yeah, no. I mean, he's like Edge in WWE right now. It's kind of
You're right. Yes.
Of like, you have big matches with him. He feels important, and you don't want it to like really. You don't want the ride to end, but it feels like that's where he is.
Yes. Yeah. Good point. All right. Well, good AEW chat. That's what's fun about the show. You never know kind of where things are going to go. Hello to everybody in the chat. It's been a bit since we checked in. Steven, Sean, Azan, Amos, Tracy, Dr. Ross, and all our other usuals, and some new faces. Welcome on in. Appreciate you being here. Tyler, I want to get your thoughts on Elimination Chamber. We spent a lot of time talking about the lead up to the big Roman Reigns Sami Zayn match, and how they would do it, how they'd go about it, how the finish would work out. I mean, obviously the crowd was amazing, and it made for a really kind of, I think, good atmosphere, a fun night in that regard. Just watching a crowd get behind somebody like that, and there be that kind of investment in a match and in a story is special. You don't get that kind of investment all the time. Even when an angle is good, you don't get that type of investment always. So I thought that was really strong, but I'm curious as to what you thought of how they did everything.
Yeah, so I was messaging you yesterday and how I let you know that I kind of have abstained from opinion on this matter. I mean, I could guess how anyone I follow would have reacted to this. Like, I know how you probably felt. I know how probably Todd Martin, how Wade, how Rich probably felt about all this match. But man, I was at a an indie show. So I came back. I got home like right as Sami Zayn was entering the ring, so I kind of went back a little bit, and then
perfect time.
Peacock froze, so then I had to go back and then find that. So thank you, Peacock.
What else is new?
So I watched that basically live, and man, I was like, more so than ever, and this is a little bit of a cop out, but I lean one way than the other, but like very two minds about it. Like in one mind of like, this story is incredible, and when you go back 5 years, when people do the rewatch of the show, it was like a 5-star WWE match from like the way things were laid out, the near falls, the use of Sami Zayn's wife. It was just like, if you need an example in the dictionary of what a main event WWE match is, it's this right here. And it's like the textbook version where you're in NXT learning how to put on a match like this, or if you want to work WWE, if you want to be that style, if you don't want to be Jon Moxley blading so bad, or squeezing the blood out of Evil Uno's head right onto his arm, which was horrifying. I know
that was so crazy.
Yeah, I love blood, and that was like, I was like, oh my god, this is too much. So
it was like shooting out of him like it was like fake.
Yeah, so sorry to bring up AEW again, but
sorry, sorry.
There's wrestlers that like that's what they want to do, and that's for them. And like if you want to be, if you want to be Tyler Black in 2008, and you want to be the guy that's in WWE right now, that's Seth Rollins, that's the match to study. And like how, like if you're putting on matches on a smaller scale and you can work with your guy and you can tell a story like that, that's the way to get to the top of that type of wrestling. But also, like, the absolute death of the crowd when Roman won the way he did, which I was not a super fan of, like the exact way they chose to do the finish and with Jay, but like the total buy-in that you had with those fans, it is tough. It felt like in the moment, it felt like they should pull the trigger here on Sami. Like me and you both picked, I think we had 5% chance for him to win. Felt that almost the entire time, and then you get that little twinge of like, hey man, this is the moment to do it. And I think there's a story to be told here that can justify all of this, but they didn't do it. I still have faith in the story by far, but I'm probably not like the 5-star I was in the moment. I'm probably like a 4 3/4 from like a storytelling perspective. But I thought, I was unsatisfied with the ending. I think the story will ultimately be satisfying with Triple H in charge. This is Vince McMahon. I think this is a huge disaster. I think that's like the way to think about this. Of like, I don't think Vince would finish Sami's story correctly here, but I think Triple H will at some point, and we'll get that big moment, and it'll be earned based on what we've seen here. It'll feel like the cap on an incredible, story of the decade in WWE. But we didn't get it here, and it was disheartening. And those fans that were there, that was a microcosm of like, it felt a little bit like John Cena winning all those times, Roman Reigns, winning early in the mid 2000s. So I don't know. There's like that part of me, and I wish Zack was on the chat. I know he'd be giving us his opinion here, but like, It felt like the moment to do it. And when you have the moment to do it, I think wrestling in general does a bad job of pulling the trigger the moment it needs to happen, and it happens 6 months down the line, and it's less impactful. And that's my concern here with Sami and Roman. But I did like it a lot. So does that make sense? I guess I'm kind of talking out both sides, but that's
no. I think it makes sense, and honestly, I think that I think that that's kind of what they were actually. That's what they were looking for. I think that's what they were looking for. So I think if you told Paul Levesque that, he'd be like, "Great, that's great," because I think that they knew that, like, all right, They went with Cody. That's the decision that they made. And so, once you make that decision, I think you have to like put pieces in place around it to make the other things work. And if you're going with Cody, you can't have Sami Zayn win this match. Like, you just can't do it. If you're gonna go with Cody, and he's going to be in the main event of WrestleMania, and he's going to wrestle Roman Reigns, you can't pull the trigger here. So with that reality in place, okay, what do you do? Well, what's the next best thing? Let's get that audience so invested where you're going to take people that think, he doesn't have any chance. He got about 2% chance, and make them buy in that moment that he's going to win. And so because I think you had that reaction, and because I had the same reaction, and others certainly did, I mean, I think they look at that and they go, "Oh yeah, that's exactly what we want." Like, because I mean, it would have been bad if you didn't think that. Like, if it, like, because I mean, to me that would be a bad That'd be bad storytelling. That'd be like, just it showed that you kind of have this fake momentum. But the fact that you actually got to the match and got in the match and just really were able to say to yourself, no, like I think you have to do it here. And with his wife at ringside, I mean, like they pull out all the stops. And so I think that, like, yes, that means you were disappointed as a Sammy fan at the end. You know, he didn't win, but the match itself, I think, accomplished the goal, which was create a very riveting WWE style main event that's going to set up Sammy's next chapter, and and the rest is what it is. I heard Wade and Todd talk about this on the VIP post show, and you can go VIP at the Torch at PWTorch.com/govip. I was more in the camp of like, man, I think you like maybe needed to like give the crowd specific direction right away, like in that exact moment. Like I know that they're going to stretch this out now. They're going to stretch out like, all right, Kevin Owens getting back with Sammy, and they're going to stretch out, okay, where's Jay's head at on all this? And eventually they're going to build to that tag team match. I think it maybe would have worked better if you would have just played that out in that match, and just like Jay costs Sammy the title, beatdown happens, Kevin Owens out for the save, bam, like big pop. Like I see both sides of it. Like I see like, oh well, we have 6 weeks, like let's take advantage of this. But like I think if you really wanted to like not have those like devastated looks in the audience, like you could have like told everybody, hey, here's Sammy's direction now. Like, don't worry, we got you. Here he goes. You know, he's moving on to this. So I was expecting them to be more like to get more of like a direction on that. But I think they followed it up well on Raw too. And so I think they sent it off in a good direction. So all in all, I mean, it was a really like risky thing for them to do. I think. Like to go along with this, to do this match right now, like the month before, like the pay-per-view before WrestleMania, when Sammy's scorching hot and you're trying to finesse this Cody Rhodes thing. I mean, man, like that's because like there was nothing that said you have to pay this off at Elimination Chamber, right? I mean, like, so it's really interesting that they went that route right now when that was not, you didn't have to. And so I think all things considered, they got to where they needed to go, and now it's on Cody, because people will look back and look at this and go, well, they messed that up big time because Cody's now not over and everybody hates him. Who knows what will happen? Like, but yeah, it gets a thumbs up for me too. I think you lean thumbs up, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, like literally, like from a WWE match, like that is as good of a modern WWE main event match as I can think of, and that's something you can rewatch multiple times, and you can get right into that headspace of where you were. In 10 years, you can watch that match and be like, I remember exactly how I felt in that moment. It's like watching Daniel Bryan WrestleMania 30 matches. Like it felt like a monumental top, whatever 25 WWE match of all time, from like all the stakes, all the tricks they pulled. It is like the type of sports entertainment that has come to make that company worth maybe $9 billion, right? All that stuff. It is just like an amalgamation of that. And yes. I think, the story is not over. So to judge it fully in this moment, that's why you need like some hindsight on, did this work as well as it could, if not, or not. Like if Cody loses to Roman at WrestleMania, and then Sammy is like, hey, you didn't beat me clean, and you tell a story, and he beats him later. I think this story that makes the match that much better, because you're laying the groundwork of, yeah, of course Sammy would have won straight up in this match. And that's like the part of the Vince McMahon WWE that always was so unfulfilling, that you tell that story, and then Sammy goes on and has a tag match that's unrelated, and like you feel like the hero's journey is like a less than journey, right? It's playing Super Mario Brothers, and you can't save Peach, but you can save whatever Rosalina and in another kingdom, right? It's like, no, I want to save Peach and defeat Bowser, like, and that's like if they do that story here with Sammy, it doesn't be that exact way, but like that's like the pretty basic storytelling that this needs to tell the story, and if that's the case, then I think it works even better. And yeah, I mean the tag matchup, like you said, just fine comment that at the end, like that was almost too much for me. It felt very much like the old WWE style, like you said, of like, hey, here's what Sammy's doing, don't worry about it. It's like, I don't really want that for Sammy. And I think this crowd watching their live was smart enough to know like the beats if he lost, what was going to happen. That you could have just told that story on TV, and maybe Roman stands over his body and leaves, and then like maybe Kevin Owens comes and picks up Sammy and they walk out together and get cheered or whatever. But the beatdown stuff I was not a super fan of. It's like the direct, like, hey, he's done with this. Get up, move on to this thing. I thought
yeah. No, I mean, it's a touchy, it's a touchy thing. But the Raw, once they didn't like throw it all back together at the show, I was glad to see Kevin Owens. I'm glad to see the company like slow play this now. Like Sammy's going to earn Kevin Owens' trust back, and we still need to know what Jay thinks and feels and where he's at. So, I'm okay with this. And again, I think like if Sami Zayn is in the main event of night one of WrestleMania, like, I mean, what more do you want? Like that's still a really solid spot, and it's almost like, and in that scenario, as I think out loud here, it's like, yes, Cody's in the main event. Yes, Sammy is in the main event, and Kevin Owens is, and the Usos. But really, it's like the Bloodline are like the WrestleMania headliners, like in that, because that it's like the story will be like them going down, or that will be like the babyface side of that story. And I think that's really compelling, given the year that they've had as a faction. So, where are you at on WrestleMania right now in terms of what's built and where things are headed? I mean, we've got 3 matches that are official. We've got Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. We've got Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's title. We've got Asuka versus Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's title. That's official. But then, you can, Logan Paul versus Seth Rollins. That's going to be a thing. I guess Brock Lesnar versus Omos is going to be a thing, which is so bizarre. And speaking of Brock, that finish at Elimination Chamber I thought was just horrendous, just absolutely just horrendous. And then there's some other things too. John Cena against Austin Theory is out there. Lita and Becky Lynch as a tag team is out there. Not official, but likely. But we're 5 weeks out. I mean, are you giving it like seeing everything kind of fall into place? How are you feeling about the card?
Yeah, it feels strongly buoyed by those potential main events of Roman and Cody, and then the Bloodline versus Sammy and Kevin Owens. So those are very strong main events, I would say, like stronger than you'd have to go back pretty far on Mania main events to compare to that. So I think that's a big plus. But yeah, the rest of the card, as you laid out there, I think also Dom and Ray feels like a
yep.
So, like of all that, like honestly at this point, and again, like we talked about with like Jack Perry and Christian Cage, like that's gotten a lot of time to build Ray and Dominic, and like from like the amount of TV time it's put in, the amount of fun I personally have had with Dominic and his character, and like if he's one-on-one with Ray, like what does that look like at this point, the way his character's built? Like that is more intriguing to me than any of the options you laid out there that I can think of. Like, the women's matches feel like they'll be solid 3-star matches that like I feel like I could see on any episode of Raw or SmackDown at this point, right? They don't feel super compelling. The stories haven't been there yet for me. The what else we got? The
Theory and Cena.
Theory Cena, like we saw Cena being pretty safe in his when he was on the main event of SmackDown, and so how will that match be? That could be great. I mean, Cena, has been a good worker the twilight of his career here, but will he want to go all out for something like that? We'll see. Logan Paul and Seth Rollins, I don't really care about the story, but the match should be entertaining. What Edge does at Mania, probably Balor or something of that liking.
Right.
Whatever. Becky being in a tag team with Lee, it's that feels like, if you're mad about Sammy being in a tag match for his WrestleMania, you should feel the same about Becky. It just feels like I'd rather her be in something more consequential. So that being said, I'm pretty lukewarm, and we have 5 weeks to build the things here, but it feels like it's the 2 main event matches, and then everything else is totally fine, but not extraordinary in any way, shape, or form. At least Brock and Omos is a train wreck that I'm this is gonna be bad. I can't wait to poo on it. So
I wrote on my column this week that I'm still not buying it. I until they're facing each other in the ring at WrestleMania 1-on-1, I just won't believe it. Won't believe that it's a real thing until it happens. That's crazy talk.
And then watch Omos pin him cleanly too.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That Undertaker
submit Brock Lesnar.
Yeah. Has he lost at WrestleMania? I don't know Omos's WrestleMania.
I don't keep tabs on Omos's WrestleMania record either
at this point, probably. But
yeah.
So it just feels kind of blah. Besides those key things, and that could change. Obviously, we have 5 weeks to build up things, but it's a lot of sameness and a lot of people that are not super hot. What's Bray gonna do? That's in that same Omos versus Brock Lesnar thing of hey, I'm gonna need 2 train wrecks. I'm gonna need 3 Hardy performances.
One train wreck each time. Oh, God,
I need a Hardy performance, and I need a. So 1-1. Thank you, son. Always on it. Our resident stat keeper. So you can't take that either. But I don't, and I'm not advocating for, we got to have a Stone Cold match at a WrestleMania. But if these stories, especially the women's title matches, it's that's the personification to me. It's totally fine to really good worked matches, but just no heat whatsoever either way. And hopefully that changes. But that's just how I feel about most of the matches at this point.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm a little higher on it than you, just because, one, I think two, and you would likely admit, we still have a ways to go. We're one week out of the Elimination Chamber, so there's a long way to go.
To be fair, now, that's how I feel about Revolution. I'm excited for the main event, but there's a lot of should be good worked matches, but I feel there's not a ton of heat in a lot of the storylines. Besides the Texas Death Match and the main event, I think everything else feels pretty much blah. But it should be a very fun, entertaining show to watch. That's how I feel about WrestleMania.
Well, and I hope, and that's the thing. I hope that we're not talking about WrestleMania right now, like I would about Revolution, because I think Revolution's a week away. WrestleMania is 5 weeks away, and so if we don't get any build for these matches. I like the bones where they are right now. I think that obviously the main events speak for themselves. But I think, Charlotte and Rhea, I think that's a pretty compelling match. We'll get a face-to-face with them this week on SmackDown. There's history there. And so with the right story for the next 5 weeks, I think I think that could be something pretty good. Ray and Dominic not announced, but I'm like you. That's one of the more, that's top 3 compelling matches at WrestleMania, just based on how things have gone. And so once they greenlight that, I'm excited to see what that looks like. Austin Theory and Cena on paper, I'm great. That's a good matchup for Theory to have at this point in his career for the United States title. But it's what do you how much is Cena going to want to work? And how much is he going to be able to do? And so I think that's going to determine whether or not it's good or not. Bianca Belair and Asuka, I don't know how much they can do from a build perspective. So I'm a little lukewarm about that. Brock and Omos, just flat out no. But I think when you look, there's right now the bones of 4 or 5 matches I'm okay with, but now they gotta build on that. And so it remains to be seen. But like, if you look at like, okay, this is the direction we're going to go for WrestleMania. Right now, I look at it and I'm like, okay, let's see how this fills in. I think there's some potential, but we'll see. We will see. Well, cool, man. That was a blast. Let's put a bow on it there, as I say. Thank you for everybody for joining us live. My voice has about tapped out, but appreciate it. Thank you for checking out Stephanie Chase's new show, the All Elite Wrap Up. She's got another one that's set to drop after last night's Dynamite a little bit later tonight on the YouTube channel, so you can check that out. But that's been really fun. She's been doing great work with that, so hopefully you guys check that out. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Just hit the little subscribe button and turn notifications on so you know that when we're live every most days here right around 4 Eastern usually, talking a variety of different subjects about the week in wrestling. So appreciate you guys. Thank you to all of our live listeners. Thank you to everybody who listened on demand. I'm tapping out. Tyler, always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you. Good chat as always. I see Zack has gotten in late, so I think you guys can continue this in the chat, but that's the kind of back and forth I was looking for, especially with our Mania talk. I'm curious what Zack's thoughts are about our talk about AEW last night, but I want to make sure I leave everybody with the picture of Jon Moxley from.
You got to show. There it is
on the stage.
Don't mess with Evil Uno, people.
Yeah,
Don't
I guess
technically
that was a Hangman Page barbed wire shot to the head, but I guess the over/under I'll leave you here, and we'll preview Revolution in depth next week, and that'll probably be most of the show because I'll have 13 matches.
Oh God!
But like, that's my guess at least with the pre-show. But like, did Jon Moxley bleed more last night for the hype match for the pay-per-view than he will bleed at the pay-per-view? In your opinion?
I mean, I'm gonna say yes, just because I hope so. Because I'm not sure how much more can you bleed if you, like than what he did last night. Throw up that picture again. Look at
That's
thing.
not even the. Yeah, I mean,
you can't like bleed too much more than that. Like, you don't want like a Eddie Guerrero, John Cena like situation. So I'm gonna go that this was the high point of the blood. How about you?
Go as well, because that was like a thing you can do where you're getting out. You don't have to wrestle 20 more minutes after you do something like that. You can go back, get patched up. I think there might be some level of obviously bleeding, but that was too much. And I just for the safety of both guys, I hope it's less than that. So.
That when he squeezes his head and like all the, I mean,
yeah, it was pretty. As we talked about as well, like I'm like, if you want to do that, if you want to entertain people that way, and you put your body on the line, like I respect people that do that and entertain people in that way. Like I wouldn't do it except for we get 100,000 subs. I'll do the skewers on the head bit, but
subscribe now, folks.
Yeah, hopefully before I can come to Chicago to see the all in show, we can do it there.
Yes.
Quite the gain if we get 97. But anyway, like pro blood if you want to do it, if you're both willing participants, whatever. But like to be bleeding so bad and then someone squeeze your neck and your blood gets shot out onto your arm, it's too much. So just don't do that. But yes, so that's what we'll end as I say it again. Like when for me, we've gone too far.
It's a great visual. All right, guys. Appreciate you all. Thank you. Again, like I said, keep it locked to the channel for Stephanie's video. It's going to drop a little bit later today. And we will catch you all tomorrow afternoon. See ya.